Guess what? We are ready to sew. I am so happy. Are you happy? Did you get this far yet? Now, before we put the light and the motor back on this machine, let's talk about just a couple of things. You're going to need a belt. I have the original belt that came with this machine. It's okay, it's actually in really great shape, but I have a different belt that I like the fit better. And the reason why you'll see later, it sets the motor sort of midway on the mount. It's not at the highest position or the lowest position. Now, this is a cogged belt, which is fine. It works great with this machine. I don't get too much tension. It's not too loose. The number on this cogged belt is MB380. And if I can find where I purchased it from, I'll link it down below. Your 99, the best bet is just looking to see if you have a part number on your existing belt. If you need to replace it, if you don't. In this case, this one was fine. It is a little bit misshapen from probably being in the same position for many years, so I'm not going to use it. Plus, I didn't like how high the motor had to be mounted in order for this to fit. I love how this fits. So let's also talk about the base. This isn't the original base for this machine. We took it out of a base. The machine, if I sell it, will go back out with that original base. But this is my working base. I buy them on eBay from a trusted seller. I will try to link that below as well. And I like it because I don't have to deal with the little latches in the back. It just lifts up and down really easy. And when I'm servicing a machine, I want that. So if you were putting your machine back in your base before you were putting the motor on, you would put it back in the same way you took it out. You should have a couple little set screws. There are little pins on the back of the base that fit inside the body of the machine, and then you put the set screws in and lock it down. Now, the first thing we'll do is put the light on. Now, with this motor setup, since the light is hardwired to the motor, you really should put the light on first because that's the only way you can access the little hole here. We have a screw hole in the light right here. The screw is going to go through the hole in this mount and then screw into the light. Well, if you have the motor on, you can't really access the screw to tighten it down. So I'm just getting that screw started. You just have to find a way to work around all the cords. And then we're just going to tighten that down. And a shorter screwdriver is probably going to be your friend in this case. But tighten down the light. Now we can attach the motor. Now I'm going to put the belt on before I even start to attach the motor. The belt's going to fit into a groove up on the hand wheel. I will show you. We are getting the belt right into this groove back here. Not up here on the hand wheel, back in this groove. And I'm just going to work the belt under the bobbin winding tire and into that groove. Now we can get the motor on. You should have a screw with hopefully a washer that's going to screw through this part of the motor mount here into a hole here on the body of the machine. And this is made so it all fits together. You have a protrusion here that fits into this cutout here. So we're just going to keep our cords out of the way. Now, before I put that screw in, I'm going to pop my belt onto the pulley while everything is still loose. And then I'm going to get that screw started. Before I tighten it all the way, see I can slide it up and down a little bit here. I'm going to kind of let it fall to where it naturally wants to fall. And then I'm going to tighten it down. That feels a little tight maybe, but do you see where this is sitting? With the other belts that I tried, I either had to have it so it was raised all the way up as far as it would go or was down as far as it would go. And that was the only way it would fit. Here I'm kind of starting in the middle, and if I want to release a little bit of tension on the belt, if I feel it's too tight, I can raise it up a smidge and lock it back down. I like that. Everything turns really easy. There's nothing slipping because it needs to be tight enough that it grabs and isn't loose, but also if it's too tight, you're going to strain your motor and it's going to make it work even harder. I think this is good. I like that. I'm going to leave it there. Okay, we have the belt on and the motor on. Guess what? We can plug this baby in. I'm going to be operating her with the new electronic style foot control that's been hardwired to the motor. And here's my plug. I'm just plugging this into my workbench, but you would plug it into your wall outlet. Now she's plugged in. Let's check the light. There is light. That works fine. Now, I want to test out the motor. So what I'm going to do is before I fully turn on the machine, over here on the side where our stop motion knob is here, I'm going to engage the stop motion feature. So I'm going to grab the hand wheel, turn it, the stop motion knob, not the hand wheel. The hand wheel stays still, but the little stop motion knob on the end, I'm turning it counterclockwise until it stops, and I'm pressing the foot control. I don't think this one has any problems, and I think that belt is perfect. So I also don't have any movement over here. Stop motion works. So now I'm going to hold my hand wheel still, turn that silver knob all the way back clockwise, and let's test her out. She looks good and she sounds good. Okay, we can go ahead and wind our first bobbin. You're going to need an empty bobbin and some thread. And I suggest for your first test sewing, get 2 different colors. So I'm going to put this red for our bobbin, and we're just going to set that up on the spool pin on top. Now, the bobbin has holes in each side. If you look at the bobbin winder, there's a little pin protruding. That is where we're going to slide one of these holes onto. So we're just going to slide it on like that. I like to do this part before I do all the threading for winding a bobbin. So I'm just spinning this so I can see the other hole, which is right here. And I'm going to go ahead and run my thread through that hole. Then I'm going to engage my bobbin winder. Now, get myself a little bit of slack here, and I'll show you where this thread needs to go. It needs to go through this thread guide right here. Then, I'm making sure it's not coming out of the bobbin, but I'm going to run it in front of the lower cutout on this little backwards S, and then back up through the top cutout. So do you see that? It went through the front, behind, and out the top. Then I'm going to make sure that the stop motion feature is engaged. So I'm going to grab the silver knob here at the end of the hand wheel, hold the hand wheel still, turn it counterclockwise until it stops, and I'm ready to wind a bobbin. Now, hold this thread out of the way. You do not want it to get caught in anything. And if you fill the bobbin all the way, it's going to release on its own. But in this case, we're not going to do that. I'm going to engage the bobbin winder like so, holding my thread out of the way. I'm going to slowly start. Now that's winding evenly, and that's what I want. So I'm going to continue to wind a little bit more. That's enough for this demonstration. Now, if you filled it, like I said, it would disengage on its own. But if you don't want a full bobbin, then you would just pull up on this little stop latch here and it will disengage on its own. So we can snip this and take this off. Now, if it wasn't winding evenly, here's your adjustment. You may need to loosen the screw here and rotate this right or left a little bit to get it to wind evenly. But this bobbin is ready to go into the bobbin case. So I'm just going to slide open this slide plate. I'm going to take my bobbin and I'm going to make sure it's going counterclockwise, and the way that it winds, this is unwinding and this would be clockwise. It's winding counterclockwise, and that's how I'm going to set it down into the bobbin case. And I'm going to just hold the bobbin still. I'm going to pull the thread behind this little cutout here and then pull it back all the way. Do you see that? I can go ahead and close this up if I want, but I'm going to leave it open because I want you to see when the upper thread catches the lower thread. So we'll leave it open. Let's thread the rest of the machine. But don't forget to turn off the stop motion feature. So you're just going to grab that silver knob, hold the hand wheel still, turn it back clockwise all the way. You want your needle to go up and down when you're sewing. Now, let's put a needle in before we thread up the rest of the way. I'm just using a standard size Schmetz needle, and the way that this machine takes its needle is the flat spot on your needle, which here's the flat spot, it's pointing towards the neck to the right. So if you have your needle in the, or your needle bar, I should say, in the highest position, it's really easy to get that needle in. Keep your flat spot pointing towards the right and put that needle up all the way and then tighten it down. You should be able to see a little bit of the flat spot still. Now let's get the thread in. Start by dropping your spool pin on top, and then we're going to go over to this first thread guide here and go behind that. Keep your presser foot up for this. You're going to kind of hold the thread still so no more will pull off of the spool, and you're going to slide the thread between the two tension discs. Make sure it goes between the two of them. Bring it all the way around, and then the check spring here, we're going to also slide the thread all the way around until it goes behind the arm on the check spring. And do you see that? That's where it's supposed to be. Now there's another place it needs to go, and that's under this little arm on the slack thread regulator. We're just going to slide it under. There's a hole there. If you know why there's a hole right here on the slack thread regulator, let me know. I don't know why it's there. You naturally want to put the thread through that hole. Don't do that. It's not supposed to go there. It goes under this little arm. Then you can run it through the eyelet on the thread take up. And if it comes out from underneath this arm, just pop it back under. Pinch this thread. When you pull it now, you should see that spring move. You want that. There's another place it needs to go next. On the nose plate here, we just pop the thread right behind this little loop. There you go. One more thread guide before the needle. There's a thread guide right here. It just goes behind that thread guide, and that thread guide is always going to help you remember that this needle threads left to right. The thread guide is on the left side of the needle. If it were on the right, then it would go on the right side of the needle to thread the needle, but it's on the left, so we're going to thread it left to right. So bring your needle up so you can get to it and thread your needle. Threading a needle on camera is always harder than when I'm just sewing. So now I've threaded my needle. What I want to do is lower my foot. I've lowered my foot, and I want to pick up my bobbin thread with my upper thread. So I'm just going to hold this, and I'm going to turn my hand wheel. Probably should hold it this way. Turn my hand wheel by hand. And the hook has caught the thread, and you can see it right there. It's going to bring us our upper thread if we just pull up. And there we go. So we've pulled up our upper thread. We can raise our foot up and tuck these little things behind. Go ahead and close your slide plate. Guess what? We are ready to sew. How long have some of you waited for this moment? For me, it's been a very long time, and I'm so glad we're here. So I just have some basic cotton. I am going to start sewing on the longest stitch length. So that's over here. I'm going to take my stitch length regulator and slide it all the way down to the 6. I want to get the longest stitch first. 3 is my favorite number, my sweet spot for tension, so I'm just going to set this right at a 3. I may need to make some adjustments to this thumb nut here. I may need to back it off a little bit, or I may need to tighten it down a little bit. I may need to adjust my bobbin tension. I just don't know until I make those first few stitches. One other thing you'll want to do, do you see this? This is our thumb nut. It controls the pressure on the presser foot. Make sure you have adequate pressure. That was up so high that everything could be fine, but there's not enough pressure on the foot and the fabric wouldn't feed. So you don't want it super tight. It depends on the fabric you're sewing on. This is adjustable, but make sure it's not almost ready to fall off. Okay, so I'm going to just start slowly and press my foot control. And we're going to run several stitches here. I already see something that I don't like. which I'm sort of glad because that's going to help you guys too. All right, let's pull this away and I'll show you what I'm seeing. This is the upper thread, it's blue. Do you see the red dots here? That's my lower thread. I need to tighten the tension on the bobbin case. I think my upper tension is okay. I don't think that looks bad at all. Let's start by just tightening the bobbin case tension just a smidge. That is this screw right here, and thankfully you can still get in it at an angle without taking the bobbin case out. I'm just going to give it, that wasn't even a quarter of a turn. I'm going to close that up, and I'm going to do another line of stitching. This is such a sturdy machine. I can still see it a little bit, less than before. I'm going to do one more tiny turn and tighten that bobbin case tension. Okay, I'm actually going to change my stitch length to now. I'm going to bump it up to about a 12 stitches per inch. She's just sounding better and better the more that she runs. Look at that. That is gorgeous. I think she is looking really, really good. So always try different stitch lengths when you first start to sew with your machine, because some tension issues are not going to show up on every length. The threads keep catching on the base here. Wow. She makes a beautiful stitch. I am so happy. Are you happy? Did you get this far yet? There we go. That is our last row of stitching, and look how beautiful it is. This machine is done. Can you believe it? It is a really happy day for me. It took us a long time to get to this point, and I am so glad that you followed along this far. Let's talk before we wrap it up. Well, to say I have been waiting for this moment would be an understatement. I have been thinking about this moment since the very first time I hit record and we started taking apart our 99s. I hope you have had very much success in your own 99 restoration. She has her battle scars, but she makes a beautiful stitch now. And what a difference. Do you remember what she looked like when we started? She was very dirty. Now, she sews like a dream. I hope you will let me know in the comments below how your experience was. Did you get your 99 to sew a gorgeous stitch like this one? Did it give you the courage to maybe tackle another sewing machine that you have? I really hope that it did. So, what is next after this series? I don't know. I have said I may be looking at starting a 201 series, but maybe I'll take a little break and just give you some other videos to answer questions you all have been sending in about different machines. I'd love to help you with those problems. Now that this is out of the way, I can take time to do that. But a 201 is probably in my very near future. So thank you again from the bottom of my heart for continuing this journey with me. I think it was worth it, don't you? I can't wait to see you all again very soon. Bye.